Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder what makes us conscious? What is happening in our brains when we experience the world, feel emotions, or even just know that we are alive? It is one of the biggest mysteries science is trying to solve, and today we're diving into some fascinating new ideas about it. Right now, the science of consciousness is a bit like a jigsaw puzzle with lots of pieces, but they're all from different boxes. Different scientists have developed many theories about how consciousness works, but they often don't agree with each other. They're like islands, talking past each other without really connecting. This new research paper suggests there is a common thread running through all these different theories. A fundamental building block that might be the key to understanding consciousness. For ages, people have wondered about consciousness. What makes us aware? What is the difference between being awake and being asleep? And how do all the physical bits and pieces in our brain create the feeling of being us? Scientists are trying to find the specific things in the brain that are connected to consciousness, what they call the neural correlates of consciousness. The problem is, many of these theories clash on basic ideas. Scientists have tried to test them against each other, but sometimes that just leads to more arguments. Some people even call certain theories unscientific. This paper proposes a different approach. Instead of fighting, they want to find what's common to all of them. They looked at several big theories and realized that almost all of them, in one way or another, talk about something called recurrency. So, what is recurrency? Imagine information flowing through your brain. Normally, we think of it like a one-way street, a feed-forward process, but recurrency means there are also pathways going backward, like a feedback loop. It is like a conversation in your brain, where different parts are constantly sending information back and forth. They think this back and forth, this looping, might be the most basic ingredient for consciousness. They've proposed a really cool idea that different types of recurrency in the brain correspond to different aspects of consciousness. They identified 4 main types of recurrency, from the tiniest level within a single brain cell all the way up to big networks across your brain. And they mapped these to 4 key parts of consciousness: your basic state of being awake, the actual stuff you are experiencing, your ability to report what you know, and the unique quality of those experiences. Let's break this down. They talk about cellular recurrency, which is within single neurons, local recurrency, which is between nearby brain areas that do similar jobs, global recurrency, which is between distant brain areas like the front and back of your brain, and lateral recurrency, which is within a specific brain area. These are mapped to state consciousness. Phenomenal consciousness, access consciousness, and phenomenal character. So, cellular recurrency, the looping happening right inside brain cells, might be super important for just being in a conscious state, like being awake versus asleep. Local recurrency, the loops between areas processing specific things like vision or sound, might be key for the content of your experience, like seeing the color red or hearing a melody. Global recurrency, the big loops connecting different parts of your brain, could be what allows you to access that information, to think about it, and to report it. And lateral recurrency, the loops within a specific brain region, might be responsible for the unique quality of your experience, why red feels like red and not blue, and how those sensations relate to each other. One theory they looked at, the dendritic integration theory, really emphasizes this cellular level recurrency. It suggests that how a neuron's branches, called dendrites, process information, especially with feedback signals, is crucial for being conscious at all. They found evidence that when anesthesia disrupts this internal cellular looping, consciousness is lost. Then there is the recurrent processing theory. This one focuses on how feedback loops within sensory areas are needed for us to actually experience something, not just process it without awareness. It says that if information just goes one way, it stays unconscious. It needs that loop back to become a conscious experience. Integrated information theory, or EIT, is another big one. It says consciousness is about how much integrated information a system has. And importantly, it states that purely feed-forward systems can't have integrated information, so they can't be conscious. Recurrency is a must for EIT. The Global Neuronal Workspace Theory, or GNWT, focuses more on the broadcast aspect of consciousness. It proposes that information becomes conscious when it is amplified in a sort of widespread network and broadcast to many parts of the brain. This broadcasting and integration involves many feedback connections. And the localist theory of conscious content tries to explain why experiences have a specific quality, like why red is similar to orange. It suggests that this quality comes from specific local networks, and the connections within those local areas involve recurrency. So, the big takeaway here is that while these theories focus on different things, some on just being awake, others on the details of what we experience, and still others on our ability to report it, they all seem to rely on this idea of recurrency. recurrency of information looping back and forth. The researchers argue that we can see these different theories as different scales of recurrency at play. Cellular recurrency for state of consciousness, local for the content of consciousness, global for access to that content, and lateral for the specific character or quality of the experience. It is like a cascade. You need the basic state of consciousness to have content, and you need the content to potentially access it. And the specific way that content feels comes from those local quality networks. This idea is beautifully illustrated with diagrams showing how these different levels of recurrency build on each other. It is not like they're totally separate boxes, but more like nested levels. Global recurrency depends on local recurrency, which in turn depends on cellular recurrency. Just like you can't have a conversation about a topic if you are not awake first. Why is this looping so important? Well, think about prediction. Your brain is constantly trying to predict what is going to happen next. This requires sending predictions down the line and then getting feedback on how accurate those predictions were. This is called predictive processing, and it is all about feedback loops. Recurrent connections are essential for refining our perceptions, correcting our mistakes, and making our thinking more efficient. They help the brain maintain stable representations of the world even when things are changing rapidly. Without these loops, our sensory information might just be a jumbled mess. Now, some scientists have argued that maybe recurrency isn't strictly necessary. They point to a mathematical idea called the universal approximation theorem, which suggests that a very complex one-way system could theoretically do what a looping system can do. But this paper argues that for biological systems like our brains, this kind of purely one-way system would need to be impossibly large and complex. Evolution, they say, has favored these efficient, looping recurrent networks because they are better for adapting to a changing world. And it is not just about loops within the brain, they also touch on brain-body recurrency. How signals from your heart, your gut, and your lungs feed back into your brain can influence how you feel and even your sense of self. This constant dialogue between your body and brain might be crucial for that feeling of I am me. Even beyond the major theories they focused on, the paper mentions that many other theories implicitly or explicitly rely on recurrency. Whether it is about attention, memory, or information integration, the underlying mechanism seems to be these feedback pathways. They show a table that lists many other theories and how recurrency is relevant to each of them. This figure really hammers home the point. All these different ideas about what consciousness does, like global broadcast, prediction, or information integrational, seem to need recurrency to actually work in the brain. Recurrency is the common ground, the underlying architecture. One of the big debates in consciousness science is the difference between phenomenal consciousness, the subjective experience, the what it is like, and access consciousness, the ability to report or act on that experience. Some theories focus on one, some on the other. This paper argues that these aren't totally separate things, but exist on a spectrum. They support the idea that phenomenal consciousness can exist without full access. Sometimes you experience something, even if you can't quite put it into words. This is called the overflow idea. They suggest that the difference between something being just a phenomenal experience and something you can access is really about how deep and widespread the recurrency goes. Think of it like this. A simple visual stimulus might be phenomenally experienced with some local feedback, but to truly access and report on it, you need that information to be broadcast more widely through global recurrency. It is a gradient, not an either-or. The deeper the feedback loops go, the more accessible and detailed the conscious experience becomes. What is really exciting about this paper is that it is not just theoretical. They propose specific testable predictions. For example, they predict that if you disrupt cellular recurrency, you should lose your basic state of consciousness, even if early sensory processing in your brain is still firing normally. This table lays out exactly what kind of experiments could be done to test their ideas. They predict how manipulating recurrency at different levels should affect different aspects of consciousness, and what kind of brain signals we should see. This is crucial for moving consciousness science forward from just theorizing to actual testing. So, what's the big picture here? The researchers are proposing that recurrency, this looping of information in the brain, is the fundamental building block of consciousness. Different levels of this looping, from within cells to across the whole brain, explain different aspects of what it means to be conscious. They believe that by focusing on this common denominator, this recurrency, we can start to bridge the gaps between all the different theories of consciousness. It is a way to organize the puzzle pieces from different boxes into a more coherent picture. And this research isn't just for scientists. They suggest that understanding these recurrent pathways could lead to new ways to diagnose and treat disorders of consciousness, like coma, or to better monitor anesthesia during surgery. It's a practical application of understanding how our brains work. Ultimately, this paper argues that the big fights between consciousness theories might be blown out of proportion. If we look at the underlying mechanism, the recurrency, we can see how they might all be pointing to different facets of the same fundamental process. It's a call for unity and a new way to look at one of the biggest mysteries in science. Alright? So that is a look at how the idea of recurrence, that constant feedback loop in our brains, might be the fundamental ingredient for everything from simply being awake to experiencing the rich tapestry of our inner lives. It's a powerful idea that could help us finally start to piece together the puzzle of consciousness. What do you think about this recurrency idea? Does it make sense to you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more explorations into the fascinating world of the mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.